I'm not a witch. I'm nothing you've heard. I'm you.
Well, I'm Laurie Gaylor, and I'm not a witch, and I really am one of you, at least if you're a freethinker, atheist, agnostic, or other sensible mortal who realizes there is no such thing as a witch, at least not like Christine O'Donnell means it. There's nothing supernatural, nothing beyond our natural world.
And I'm Dan Barker, your friendly neighborhood atheist, and I am not a crook. It's interesting that she doesn't disavow or deny the existence of witches. She just says, I'm not one of them. Welcome to Freethought Radio. This is the weekend of October 16th and 17th, 2010. So this week, there's a lot of news to cover this week.
Yes, including your debate last Thursday. And who was that with, Dan?
That was Dinesh D'Souza, and he's a well-known conservative Christian writer and a right-wing political observer.
And what's his latest book?
His latest book is Obama's Rage. Obama apparently has this fierce anti-colonialist bias.
I haven't seen a lot of rage out of our president, have you?
But our debate was not about that. It was about would the world be better off without religion. In other news, the Freedom from Religion Foundation has placed 10 billboards in Flint, Michigan. We're doing our best to help the economy and to enlighten at the same time.
And what do those billboards say, Dan?
One of those billboards quotes John F. Kennedy from his famous address when he was running for president. He addressed the Protestant ministers in Houston in 1960, and he said, I believe in an America where the separation of church and state is absolute. This is the Freedom from Religion Foundation's debut of the John F. Kennedy quote on a billboard. It has appeared as an interior bus sign previously.
And we would like to go back to those days when public officials actually publicly revered the constitutional principle of separation between church and state. What candidate for public office today would make such a clear, unequivocal endorsement of secular government?
And some of the other billboards?
They include In Reason We Trust, depicted on a shiny penny. We wish that's what we saw when we pulled out our money. Imagine No Religion with a stained glass window motif, and a red, white, and blue billboard warning, God and government, a dangerous mix.
Our staff attorneys and legal interns have been busy as usual. Lots of letters of complaint to erring officials going out. And probably the most interesting this past week, FFRF's letter to Redlands, California Unified School District over a practice at the high school where the team and coach recite the Lord's Prayer and traditionally open the first practice of the season with and we're not making this up, a blessing of the helmets.
And of course, the Lord's Prayer is explicitly Christian in nature. It comes from the New Testament. Prayer in school is bad enough and always excludes non-believers, but a Christian prayer excludes other believers as well.
Most ridiculous is that this year, as reported in the Redlands Daily Facts, the team's coach invited Larry White, he's a pastor from Horizon Church in Victorville, California, to deliver the blessing of the helmets prayer. I think that's Dinesh D'Souza's congregation, the Horizon Church in California. There were a lot of photos of this blessing, and you can see all these helmets out on the floor getting what? Sprayed on with Holy Ghost blessing or something?
The foundation requested an immediate investigation by the district into these prayerful practices of the football team, and we expressed concerns that these violations might be occurring elsewhere in the district. Patrick Elliott, one of our staff attorneys, requested in writing that the district say what steps it is taking to remedy this serious violation, and pointed out that a blessing of the helmets is not only illegal in public schools, but ranks right up there with the most absurd of superstitious silliness.
We'll talk about hard-headedness. Turning to national news, of course, we started the show with a snippet from the now infamous commercial, the political ad by Christine O'Donnell, who's running for Congress in Delaware. We've previously played some of her comments dissing evolution and so on. Now, a candidate for governor of New York State has been in the headlines a lot for making a lot of outrageous statements and a sort of an apology. Here's one of the statements that Carl Paladin has kind of apologized for.
We must stop pandering to the pornographers and the perverts who seek to target our children and destroy their lives. I didn't march in a gay parade this year. The gay pride parade this year. My opponent did. And that's not the example that we should be showing our children, and certainly not in our schools. I just think my children and your children will be much better off and much more successful getting married and raising a family. And I don't want them to be brainwashed into thinking that homosexuality is an equally valid or successful option. It isn't.
That's Carl Palladino. And is almost always is the case. These homophobic comments were fueled by religion and directly attributed in the media to Palladino's devout Roman Catholicism. Palladino kept putting his foot in his mouth. His initial anti-gay statement was made last week at a synagogue in front of Orthodox Jews. He criticized his rival, State Attorney General Andrew Cuomo, for marching in this summer's gay pride parade, and he said, quote, "That's not how God created us, and that's not the example that we should be showing our children. I don't want them to be brainwashed into thinking that homosexuality is an equally valid and successful option."
So we have this specter, this make-believe force out in the cosmos, a God, and isn't it handy there are always humans who know exactly what this God thinks.
Religion is such a great tool for tyrants and bigots to use, and of course the Bible, Hebrew and Christian versions, is anti-gay. There are not many references to gays in it, but the few references there are ain't church, and that's a play on Spencer Tracy's comments about Katharine Hepburn.
Ain't choice,
there wasn't much there, but what was there is church.
Okay, for a look at atheism and freethought in popular culture, check out the October 5th TV show Glee, which is a big hit these days. First, there was a nice reminder of the separation between church and state when devotional music was creeping into the Glee Club and the principal nixes it.
I'm giving a lesson on spirituality. I don't understand what the big deal is.
Well, the big deal is that this is a public school, and there's this little thing called separation of church and state, which happens to be the pillar of a functioning civil society.
So children should be allowed to profess whatever faith they choose.
At the BET Awards, but not in a public school.
Sue, I'm trying to help these kids. Kurt is struggling with some really tough issues.
Well, William, if your kids want to praise Jesus in class, I suggest they enroll at Sweet Holy Mother of God Academy on I Love Jesus Street, but not here. This country is not a monarchy, William. Trust me, I've tried. And as much as I enjoy giving impromptu civics lessons, I got work to do.
Okay, so this dabbling of Jesus songs in the Glee Club prompts one of the main characters, Kurt, who is out of the closet as a gay young man, to come out of another closet.
Thank you, Mercedes. Your voice is stunning, but I don't believe in God.
Wait, what?
You've all professed your beliefs, I'm just stating mine. I think God is kind of like Santa Claus for adults. Otherwise, God's kind of a jerk, isn't he? I mean, he makes me gay and then has his followers going around telling me it's something that I chose, as if someone would choose to be mocked every single day of their life. And right now, I don't want a heavenly father. I want my real one back.
But Kurt, how do you know for sure? You can't prove that there's no God.
You can't prove that there isn't a magic teapot floating around on the dark side of the moon with a dwarf inside of it that reads romance novels and shoots lightning out of its boobs, but it seems pretty unlikely, doesn't it? Is God an evil dwarf?
We shouldn't be talking like this. It's not right.
I'm sorry, Quinn. But you all can believe whatever you want to. But I can't believe something I don't. I appreciate your thoughts. But I don't want your prayers.
And here's another clip about Kurt's epiphany about religion.
And after a while, I realized it wasn't that I wasn't praying hard enough. It's that no one was listening. Asking someone to believe in a fantasy, however comforting, isn't a moral thing to do. It's cruel.
Don't you think that's just a little bit arrogant?
It's as arrogant as telling someone how to believe in God, and if they don't accept it, no matter how open-hearted or honest their dissent, they're going to hell. Well, that doesn't sound very Christian, does it?
Well, if that's what you believe, that's fine. But please keep it to yourself.
As long as you do the same.
Okay, well, there's some great writing there. You don't often hear this point made that religion is cruel, that it's immoral, that there's something abusive. Maybe it's child abuse to teach lies. The lie that there is life after death, or there's a hell, or even that there's a heaven, that this isn't our only world. So kudos to the Glee writers.
And this week on the Amy Goodman Show, the spy writer John Le Carré made some fascinating remarks, in part about ex-Prime Minister Blair's remarks about God and a righteous war.
I think I would have asked him one question, perhaps, and I'd have asked it repeatedly. I'd have asked him about his faith, because we were told when journalists asked about Blair's faith, the reply was, we don't do God here. Well, of course, he does do God. And he reports that his actions have been put before God and confirmed, as if somehow God has signed a chit for him. I think that the question of somebody's religious faith is absolutely central to what we think of them. If we are members of the electorate, we have to know. If it is, for example, somebody's conviction, widely held among Christians in the United States, that the second coming of Christ is not possible till the greater Israel is established, we need to know that. That's an important political perception. In Blair's case, I would have asked him that question, and I'd have pressed him on it. I'd have asked him whether God had ever restrained him. I find it very strange that we elect a politician who then claims to serve a higher deity who guides him. I did what I believe is right. Well, will you tell us, please, how that relates to the Christian ethic? Do you believe in war first and negotiation afterwards? Exactly how does this work?
And that brings us to the War Prayer by Mark Twain. Our upcoming guest, Bill Eaters, writes a bit about the War Prayer. Dan, you set it to music, right?
Yes, we do it in the Tunes and Tunes show. If you come to the convention, you'll see me and Steve Benson singing and showing his war editorial cartoons at the same time. Cartoons. So you can't see the cartoons here, but
so this is you singing a lot of Mark Twain's War Prayer. Well, as much time as we have for that.
From Mark Twain's 1904 War Prayer, which has been called perhaps his most prophetic piece of writing. It's the story of a preacher who has just finished praying for God to guide the nation's soldiers to victory. Went into the church a mysterious stranger who turns to the congregation and utters aloud the real unspoken prayer of their hearts. O Lord, our God, help us to tear their soldiers to bloody shreds with our shells. Help us to cover their smiling fields with the pale forms of their patriot dead. Help us to drown the thunder of their guns with the shrieks of their wounded, writhing in pain. Help us to lay waste their humble homes with a hurricane of fire. Help us to wring the hearts of their unoffending widows with unavailing grief. Help us to turn them out roofless with their little children to wander unfriended the waste of their desolated land.